Hello. Um, Last night, my cousin Mylin just came back from short vacation in the Philippines, and I asked her, "What's your pasalubong to me?" And of course, she said, "I got two letters for you." So she handed me the letters, and I would like to share them with you. Uh, I kind of pick on them and just to see what are they, because I don't want to be just reading them straight forward or what without knowing what's in the letter. So I kind of shed a little tears in my eyes when I was reading them. So if I do again, please excuse me, because I think they're really nice letters. The first letter, it says, "Dear Nell." It was actually addressed to me, but I think it's also for my brothers and sisters, and like I said, I would like to share it with you. It says, "Your cousin Mylin told me that you are honoring your late father with a memorial service on January 12, 2013. Your Auntie Lolly confirmed to me about this event. I wish to congratulate you for sponsoring this memorial service, for there is no one man whose memory needs to be stole. It is your father. When he died, I lost one of my closest friends. You will know why later in this letter. I came to know Kong Zar, that's how I called your dad, the first time he courted your mother, who is my first cousin. In those times, no girl could go out on a date without a chaperone. There were few occasions when I acted as a chaperone in those dates. That is how it was in the Philippines. This continued to be a custom in these times in many households, a trait which is not lost among Filipinos. When I entered college in the University of the Philippines, Pongzar invited me to live with him in the house of one of his sisters located at Constancia, Sampaloc, Manila. I needed a place to stay, and perhaps the invitation was that he wanted to gain favors from the family of your mother, as he was then deep in courtship. Your dad was then studying in the Far Eastern University, taking up studies leading to the degree of Bachelor of Science in Education. After 1 year, I decided to move to a place nearer to my university. Pongzar continued to live at her sister's house. It was then that one night, the house was razed to the ground and your dad suffered third-degree burns. Surprisingly, in only a few years, the scars disappeared. No trace of burns remained. Your father was one of the leading laymen of Aldersgate United Methodist Church of Angeles City, Philippines. The church lost an outstanding layman when he and his family decided to migrate and live in America. We became closely associated with many religious activities, which up to today I still fondly remember. For many years, I was chairman of the administrative board, now called Church Council. Oh, your dad was my secretary during all those times. I say he was the best secretary the church ever had, for he transcribed faithfully the minutes of all meetings, so much so that this transcription contained the history of the church that can be read. Your father succeeded me as the chairman when it was time for me to rest. When I was elected as national president of the United Methodist Men in the Philippines in 1968 to 1972, I accepted the position on the condition that Kong Cesar will be my secretary. We traveled together the length and breadth of the country and visited many Methodist Men chapters and promoted the organization. When the Gideons International put up a chapter in Angeles City in March 1975, I was elected as the founding president. Again, I accepted the position as long as Kong Cesar was my secretary. During our time, we did not miss attending national conventions and other national and local activities that were held in principal cities in the Philippines. When I was appointed to the judiciary as judge of a regional court and then promoted to a position in the Supreme Court of the Philippines, I would have loved to have your father as my private secretary. A position of importance, but unfortunately, at least for me, that could no longer be because Kong Cesar had long been living already in America. One thing I will forget is our passion for the game of Scrabble.
There you go.
Our Scrabble mates were Mr. Eugenio Tumambo, Mr. Rafael Cayanan, Engineer Samuel San Pedro, Pastor Jose Embao, and Mr. Benjamin Aquino.
There you go.
We would play Scrabble from late afternoon until the following morning,
That's right.
whenever we have the time out of our respective work. The first five, including your father, are now gone to be with the Lord. The first three died in the Philippines, and I had the honor to deliver the eulogy during the necrological services. I would have loved to do the same where I would have been in Daly City when your father died. I oftentimes joke like, when my time is up, there seems to be no one anymore to do the eulogy.
That's right.
I doubt whether paring Ben Aquino, in his old age, could travel to the Philippines
And do the eulogy.
to do this for me. Mr. Aquino, if I may add, Mr. Aquino is like 90 years old now, so
Yeah, it's true.
92.
I think he's the eldest among the Scrabble clans. The last remaining glory for your father was when it was good for you to bring him to Angeles City, which turned to be his last visit. He loved this place because it was here where he and your mom started to build a home. You and all your siblings were born here and grew up to manhood. It was here when your father struggled to be able to raise you up. There were two events that I think were memorable for your dad in this visit. For the last time, he was able to have his feet touch the ground of the church, which he served so well and loved so much. The second is when you organized for him a reunion with his relatives in Apalit, Pampanga, the place where he was born and grew up. For this, he was able to bid them his last farewell. Your parents started their married life, as I said, in Angeles City. Your mother continued to work at Clark Air Base, while your father started teaching at a high school in his hometown. The pay was not enough to sustain the needs of the growing family. He then decided to find his luck in Angeles City by becoming an insurance agent, a profitable work in those times. Long before he and his family moved to America, Kong Cesar became one of the outstanding insurance agents of FGU, one of the biggest insurance companies in the Philippines. Kong Cesar tried as much as he could to make his family live comfortably. He was a loving husband, a good provider for his children, and a true blue Methodist all over the years until the end. He was proud of his children, with all their faults and shortcomings. He did not dwell thinking about this, but I believe that he loved them until the day he died. In closing, let me tell you this to you. Nell, I would be happy to pass this on to your brothers and sisters. Whether you face death, discouragement, loss, or pain, we can take great comfort in knowing no sorrow is too deep that God can not feel it with us. And God wants to deliver us from it. He wants to bring us His divine comfort. Finally, I tell you, you and your brothers and sisters are so lucky to have this kind of man as your father, your Uncle Rey Suarez. Looks like